For 3.5 quarters, it looked like the Seahawks were going to leave Glendale with an easy win, but the Cardinals had other plans. Seattle outlasting their division rivals in a game that ended up being a lot closer than it probably should have been. Going to be breaking it all down here on our latest post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in for this late night episode. This is what we have happen when we have these late night games, Thursday night football. It gets a little bit tricky sometimes to be able to get these done in a timely manner with all the writing and every other thing going on. After a crazy finish in Glendale, the Seahawks had a convincing lead for a good chunk of this game on Thursday night, but the Arizona Cardinals, they decided to make things kind of interesting. Towards the end, were able to knock the game up at 20 points apiece after they were trailing by 14. Not that much earlier in the game, the Seahawks were up 20-6, and the Cardinals come storming back with 2 touchdown drives. Fortunately for Seahawks fans, you get to go into a mini bye with a 3-1 record thanks to Jason Myers and Sam Darnold, Jackson Smith and Jigba and company. And you can also give Chad Ryland some credit as well from the Cardinals. And I'll get to more of that here in a second. But this 23-20 victory over the Arizona Cardinals propels the Seahawks into at least a tie for second place in the NFC West, depending on what happens this weekend with the 49ers and the Rams in their respective games. The 49ers win. Obviously, the Seahawks are still in second place. But this puts them at 3-1. They're now 1-1 in the NFC West. The Cardinals dropping to 0-2. And again, this is a game that it felt like should have probably been a little easier for the Seahawks to pull off than getting a game-winning field goal, but that's not how it played out. When you look at the stats, the passing yards, it was a big discrepancy. Rushing yards, the Seahawks had more. The Seahawks had the ball for almost 5 full minutes longer than what the Cardinals did. They also created more turnovers, and what's ironic about this is the one turnover the Seahawks had came off of a turnover. Kobe Bryant intercepting Kyler Murray in the first quarter and then gets hit by his own teammate as he's going to the ground. Tyrese Knight knocks the ball out of his hands. Looked like he was trying to give himself up, but he had not hit the ground yet and did not get touched by a Cardinals player at that point, so they did not overturn the play. So the one turnover that the Seahawks did have in this game, it came after they had created a turnover themselves. So really you could say that this was a 3-turnover game because Tyrese Knight got to fumble on that play with Kobe Bryant. But it felt like it was a game that the Seahawks were in command throughout, even when the Cardinals came back and tied the game. And kudos to Arizona. They did not give up. They had 2 excellent drives in the fourth quarter. The defense made some mistakes that allowed drives to be extended, and Arizona capitalized on it. And Seattle's offense didn't finish drives enough in this game to really put it away. And I think that's the big storyline here. If the Seahawks would have lost this game, then you'd be bemoaning the fact that Kobe Bryant, as I mentioned, interception that he had the ball knocked out of his hands. He was going to the ground by his own teammate. Seahawks don't get any points. In fact, they give up 3 on the next drive. The Cardinals get the field goal to go up 3-0. You have a net -3 in the point differential off turnovers because that directly led to the Cardinals getting that field goal. And then Ernest Jones has interception that was bobbled off Marvin Harrison Jr.'s hands in the second quarter, and he returns it past midfield. Prime opportunity to go get points. And they had 3rd and 3 at the end of a Ken Walker run, and Walker gets penalized for taunting. And so it becomes 3rd and 18. They lose 4 on a screen. The next play, they're knocked out of field goal range. They have to punt. So neither one of those turnovers turned into any points for the Seahawks. In fact, like I said, it directly went to 3 points for the Cardinals after they fumbled the interception that they had from Kobe Bryant. And so they did not capitalize on those opportunities. Julian Love had a gimme interception at the end of the first half that bounced off his chest that he didn't reel in, that would have put the Seahawks immediately in field goal range to add points before half. So they had chances in that first half to blow the game open. In the second half, they had a missed field goal. They had a conservative fourth quarter drive. The end of the drive was conservative where they ran the ball 3 straight plays. They were in 4-minute offense. They didn't move the chains. And then Myers misses a 52-yard field goal or 56-yard field goal. The Seahawks did not help themselves at all in terms of those miscues. They didn't capitalize on what the Cardinals did wrong. And those points ended up almost coming back to cost them. But the end of the day, the real storyline coming out of this game, because the Seahawks found a way to win it, even with those 2 touchdowns the Cardinals scored, the fact the defense had been so dominant all day suddenly was struggling to stop Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison and company. There was still no doubt on the sideline that the Seahawks were going to win this game. And I think a lot of that goes back to Mike McDonald and his mentality, but also the quarterback, Sam Darnold. It doesn't matter if they're up 20. It doesn't matter if they're down 20. It doesn't matter if they're in the middle of a tied game with 28 seconds left on the clock, like they had in this game. He is always going to be ready to go out of the field with the same even-keeled demeanor. And he doesn't get high, he doesn't get low. He is always in the same spot, and his teammates are following his lead on that front. They always feel like they're going to win the game no matter what happens down the line. They feel like Sam Darnold is going to put them in a position to win the game. And that's ultimately what happened. And I think when you look at that final 28 seconds, Arizona, talk about miscues. Chad Ryland, the new kickoff rules, the ball has to land. It has to hit the ground inside the 20-yard line. It has to hit what's called the landing zone, and his kick came up short. It hit short of that landing zone, which is a penalty. It automatically puts the ball at the 40-yard line. So Seattle, they only really had to drive 25 yards to get into Jason Myers' wheelhouse for a field goal, and they had 28 seconds. No time went off the clock with that penalty. So they had one timeout. They had 28 seconds. That was a critical mistake on special teams. The Seahawks have really benefited from these new kickoff rules and other teams botching those rules the last 3 weeks. But the opportunity for Darnold to go in the field and have that short little distance you had to travel to go get into Jason Myers' field goal range, he comes right out and hits Jackson Smith and Jigba. Perfect inside shoulder throw with the defender covering the outside, hits him on the inside, and Jackson Smith and Jigba manages to get out of bounds so they don't have to burn their timeout. And then they decided to run the football. Charbonnet grinds his way to a nice gain, and they let the clock wind down to a couple seconds before they use their final timeout. They felt at that point, hey, we're not going to get cute. That's how Mike McDonald summed it up after the game. We're not going to get cute. We're going to go get this field goal opportunity. And Jason Myers got redemption after missing that 56-yarder earlier in the quarter, goes out and splits the uprights as time expires. So the Seahawks escape with a critical win. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. They win the football game. Should they have probably won this game a lot easier than what they did? It probably should have been more comfortable than it was. But this is what happens when the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks get together. They never have normal football games. There's always going to be chaos when these two teams get together, especially in Arizona. There's just no such thing as a normal game between these teams. You're going to see safeties intercept passes and then fumble with a teammate hitting them. You're going to see chaotic plays where Kyler Murray looks like he has nowhere to go and then suddenly gets a 29-yard run. You're going to see chaotic plays where Marvin Harrison goes from dropping easy passes to making spectacular ones over the top of Devin Witherspoon. I mean, this game had a little bit of everything, just as you would expect between these two teams. And the Seahawks, they had a lot of opportunities to tack on extra points they didn't take advantage of that in the end allowed the Cardinals to be able to claw back in the fourth quarter. And fortunately, Seattle has short-term memory. They forgot about those couple drives, but we're still going to go win this football game. And that's what Sam Darnold did with that throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba, getting them in field goal range, just continues to get the job done in crucial moments for the Seahawks. And he's finding ways to finish games under center. I know he didn't get it done in week 1 because of the fumble caused by having the ball, his release hand hitting Abraham Lucas as he got pushed back into the backfield. But he has really been so good at getting the Seahawks in positions to win these football games. And that's really the thing. You're seeing a team that believes. They have the culture in place. They believe they are going to win every game. They believe in their quarterback. They believe in their defense. They expect no matter what happens, they're going to find a way to win. And that's what they did on Thursday Night Football. Coming up next, I'm going to continue diving into this game with our weekly game balls, offense, defense, special teams. That'll be coming up next here on our Blue Friday, and not Blue Friday. It technically is Friday, but our post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by friends over at FanDuel, and FanDuel is making sure with the NFL season officially underway that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, such as how many touchdowns Sam Darnold is going to throw against the Buccaneers coming up in Week 5, building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets for the opening week, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in on this late-night edition. And thanks, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks coming away with a 23-20 win over the Cardinals. They had to sweat it out more than they probably should have had. It was a game that Seattle was up multiple scores for a good chunk of regulation. Then the Cardinals came storming back again. A credit to Arizona. They made some spectacular plays. Seattle helped them out during that time as well. I'll get to more on that later in the show. But Seattle had to deal with a pesky rival that found a way to make that furious rally, tie the game, and then Seattle ended up still breaking their hearts with the game-winning field goal by Jason Myers as time expired. Let's get to our game balls, shall we? And I'm going to start on the offensive side of the football. And there's a few players that I considered here that ultimately I did not pick. And, you know, Jackson Smith and Jigba for almost 3 quarters in this game didn't have a catch, and he still finished with 79 yards, had a couple massive plays in the fourth quarter, including the 22-yard catch that set up Jason Myers' game-winning field goal. Could have considered him for that. Ken Walker made some spectacular runs. There was also some boneheaded plays in there, including the taunting penalty they had that drove Seattle out of field goal range in the second quarter after the Ernest Jones interception. There's plays in there that I just cannot give him the game ball, even though he made some spectacular runs at a 29-yard catch. At the end of the day, it's got to go to the guy that continues to be consistent. He's making smart decisions, getting the football out and just dropping dimes on deep balls. And that is Sam Darnold. And you look at the day that he had, not quite as many passing yards as he had in Week 3 against the Saints, but finished with 242 passing yards, around 70% completion percentage, had a touchdown, no interceptions, did fumble on a strip sack that he got hit from behind on, but luckily Eric Saubert recovered that, but not putting the ball in harm's way. And it's not like he isn't taking shots downfield either. This is not a dink and dunk offense where he's throwing his average distance of pass 3.5 yards or something. He is taking his shots when they're there for him. I thought he was really adept at moving up the pocket when he needed to. There was one where the seas parted and he went 24 yards for a long scamper. And really the play before that was even more impressive. Sam Darnold's rolling out to his right on third down and he's near his own goal line. You're in kind of that danger zone. And he had 15, 20 yards of green in front of him, but he decided, you know what, I'm going to wing this to Elijah Arroyo, and I'm going to let my rookie tight end make a play. The trust that he put in the tight end, who was heavily covered there, was really good coverage, but Arroyo ended up coming back to the ball and made the catch for a 32-yard gain. Those are the kind of plays you can see the trust that he is building with his receivers, the velocity. He had another throw to Arroyo later on that drive in the end zone that ended up coaxing a defensive pass interference penalty that was an absolute dime to the corner of the end zone. So he just continues to throw with great anticipation, accuracy. He made some throws with pressure barreling down on him, and he took 4 sacks in this game. The Cardinals were able to get more pressure than any team has to this point. They were aggressive, sending blitzers. Their edge guys were winning battles against the tackles, and Sam Darnold took some hits. He took some beating in this game, and it didn't matter. He just kept coming back, even keeled Sam. So to me, he was easily the offensive player of the game, and he really elevated the rest of the team around him in this game. And the run game was there to help him out, but he was part of that success with a 24-yard run and using his legs on bootlegs and scrambles. So he was involved in that success with the ground game and helping open up some of those play action opportunities. And again, no turnovers. He is doing the things he needs to do to be a successful, not just game manager, but able to at times carry this offense and elevate the guys around him. Sam Darnold is doing that. So another really strong performance from him. Going to the defensive side of the football, I had a couple guys that I considered for this one because Seattle, up until Arizona scored their last two possessions, they scored touchdowns. Up to that point, they had 6 points. It was another dominant outing by the defense until the fourth quarter. I have to give the ball to the guy that has dealt with so many injuries the last couple of years, though, and that had easily his best game since his breakout 2022 season. He's had all the injuries since then, but Uchenna Nwosu getting to Kyler Murray, not just once, but twice in this game, getting a pair of sacks. He had a couple of really nice run stops. Number 7 was all over the place today. And the Seahawks did not have a sack from one of their edge rushers in the first 3 games. Nwosu goes out and doubles that total with 2 of them in this game. So I've got to go with Uchenna Nwosu as my defensive game ball winner. And it was cool getting to talk to him after the game and just hearing his thoughts on everything he's been through and how grateful he is just to be able to get back on the field and be able to play with his teammates again. But his teammates have missed him with his contributions, and they needed him. DeMarcus Lawrence exited in the first half with a thigh injury. They needed every snap they could get out of him. He's still trying to get his legs underneath him from a conditioning standpoint. He acknowledged he was gassed at times in this game, but he gave the Seahawks something that they have been desperately needing in terms of having a relentless rusher that really can finish and get to the quarterback that Nwosu was able to do when he was healthy a couple of years ago. He looked like 2022 Uchenna Nwosu tonight. That's a major development for the Seattle Seahawks. So Nwosu getting his first game ball in quite some time here on Locked On Seahawks, and a very deserving recipient at that. Going to special teams, Jason Myers made that clutch field goal. It'd be easy to select him as the player, even with the missed field goal. He converted on 3 out of 4. And that game winner goes out there, all the pressure in the world, and just splits the uprights with ease. You could easily select him if you were wanting to take an easy way out. But look, I watch all these plays with great detail, and I try to see who are the guys on special teams that really jump out. And today it was all about number 83, Dareke Young. I thought he had a fantastic effort on special teams. He finished with a team-high 3 tackles on kick and punt coverage. There was one play in particular where it looked like Dortch, the kick returner for the Cardinals, was going to have a seam, and then suddenly 83 shows up and just blasts him and just immediately close that crease. And he is such a good special teams player. He has been since he came into the league, but got to see him go make that play. Had a nice block on Zach Charbonnet's touchdown run as well on offense. Had a nice kick return that he was 1 block away from maybe potentially housing. So I just think number 83, when you look at the guy that had the best all-around game on special teams, he led the team in tackles in that capacity, had a nice kick return. I just think number 83 keeps showing up. He keeps making good things happen on the field when he's out there and continues to be one of the core special teams players for the Seahawks. So going to give him the game ball. Jason Myers had that missed field goal that almost ended up coming back to bite the Seahawks. 56-yarders are not automatic. Still had a really good game for the most part. But I got to give Dareke Young a guy that really went out there and played his heart out and didn't have any miscues, noticeable ones at least. He was out there making tackles. He was consistently producing plays. Got to give number 83 some love with his first game ball of the 2025 season. Up next, going to flip the script to our weekly stock watch, 3 up, 3 down, who's hot, who's not, coming out of Glendale. I mean, technically we're all hot coming out of Glendale, but coming out of this game, who had a good game, who's going to be going to looking to bounce back in week 5 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't go away. You're listening to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. Late night edition here after the Seahawks bust out a 23-20 escape victory over the Arizona Cardinals. It really was survival mode because Arizona came back with a furious rally, 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. But Jason Myers, Sam Darnold, Jack Smith, and Jigba, those 3 combined to lead the Seahawks on a drive at the end of the game to get a game-winning field goal. Seattle escapes with a 3-point win. Let's get to the 3 up, 3 down weekly stock watch. Players that didn't get game balls but still stood out, and then some players who are going to be looking to bounce back in week 5 when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come to Lumen Field. Let's start on the positive side, the players that really stood out. And I want to go with a group of players here first off on who's hot. Let's give the tight ends their due. The tight ends were out there making plays left and right for the Seahawks in this game. A.J. Barner with the only touchdown catch from Sam Darnold. It was a 16-yard wheel route, and that was the first touchdown that the Seahawks scored. Beautifully thrown ball, outstanding route from A.J. Barner, who's now got 6 red zone touchdowns in his 1 1/4 NFL seasons. He has become a real weapon in the red zone for the Seattle Seahawks. Elijah Arroyo gets over 40 yards on his 2 catches, had a 32-yarder, his longest NFL catch to this point, and that was a key one on third down, as I mentioned earlier, with Sam Darnold escaping the pocket. He's in the shadow of his own goalpost and decides, instead of taking off and running when he could have got the first down that way, decides to throw it downfield, and Arroyo makes a really nice play. And then Eric Salbert had a fumble recovery. Sam Darnold gets hit from behind while he's trying to throw. Ball comes out. Eric Salbert recovers it. Seattle went down and got a field goal. So that turned into 3 points with that fumble recovery. So all 3 tight ends making big plays in this game, certainly deserving of game balls. In the middle of the defense, Ernest Jones, I thought number 13 was all over the place today. He had one of his finest games. The Seahawks uniform, finished second on the team in tackles, had half a sack, also had that interception that, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that was just gift wrap for him. But as he said after the game, you got to put yourself in position where the ball finds you. And that's what he did. He dropped back into coverage. Marvin Harrison's coming across the middle and slant. And that should have been caught by number 18. But the ball was bobbled, and then Josh Jobe comes in from behind, knocks the ball up, and then suddenly Ernest Jones in position. He put himself in position to make that play, and then looked like a running back after the catch, weaving through guys and then getting past midfield. He just continues to play like a all-pro caliber linebacker. He has been an outstanding addition. His 3-year contract's looking like a bargain at this point. And it hasn't mattered who they put next to him. They're rotating Drake Thomas in with Tyrese Knight. Doesn't matter. Number 13 is just going to continue making plays sideline to sideline. He's involved in the pass rush. He's involved in coverage, making plays. Now has 2 interceptions. That was actually his second interception against Kyler Murray in as many games in Arizona, too. Murray's probably getting sick of seeing number 13. And then in the secondary, look, I thought there was a lot of negatives in the secondary, and I'll get to more of that here in a second. But one player who just continues to make plays, Josh Jobe did not have a perfect game by any means. He missed a few tackles in open field. All the corners were missing tackles. That is something Seahawks are going to be harping on in their post-game film study. But Josh Jobe had an opportunity to knock the ball up from Marvin Harrison Jr. when he was bobbling it. He was the one that was in trail on that play. Gets the ball up in the air. He had another play late in the game where he walled off the receiver and Michael Wilson was not able to get both of his feet in bounds. And it was a clean play. It was not pass interference, but the body positioning, the way that Josh Jobe set himself up, Michael Wilson couldn't get both of his feet down in bounds, even though he caught the ball. It was really good coverage there. And he also had his first partial sack in his career as well, coming on a blitz. So a big game for Josh Jobe, continues to play at a high level, didn't give up any big plays downfield. He continues to be a guy the Seahawks can count on week in, week out, is going to give them a quality performance. And honestly, Kyler Murray was picking on the other guys, and that really leads to the worst part of this discussion, the players who are not hot, the ones that are struggling coming out of this game. And I want to start on the offensive line as far as who's not hot coming out of this game. This was the toughest challenge that the Seahawks offensive lines had in terms of protecting Sam Darnold. And when you're facing a Jonathan Gannon defense, look, they like to bring 5-6 rushers. They like to mix in exotic looks. This was a defense that I expected was going to have some success, at some point being able to get after Sam Darnold. And they got 4 sacks. They forced a fumble. Seattle luckily recovered that. That could have been a complete game changer if Arizona recovered that and then went down and got points when the Seahawks couldn't get any points off the 2 turnovers they created in the first half. That's the type of swing in a close game like this that can turn it from a win into a loss. So they were fortunate that that didn't backfire on them, and it was recovered by the Cardinals. But Arizona was mixing and matching some of their exotic blitzes. They did a good job of confusing the offensive line. There were some plays where the edges just outright beat the tackles. Charles Cross got beat a couple times. Abe Lucas got beat a couple times. And Darnold had a couple times where he hung onto the ball a little bit longer than what he has been and ended up taking the beating in the pocket. So this was not a great game for pass protection. It's one that the Seahawks can learn from. They can grow from. They only given up 3 sacks total in the first 3 games. Some of that was on Darnold getting the ball out quick. Arizona did a really good job of game planning and putting their guys in a position where they could create some problems for this offensive line. So the pass pro is going to be an area that I expect that we are going to see the Seahawks in this mini bye, that they are going to be attacking, trying to figure out what can we do to improve from this game. And sometimes having some adversity like that can help your unit get better as long as you make the proper adjustments and you attack the areas you struggled with and you teach things up. So we'll see how Seattle handles having this extended break and how much that helps the offensive line on that front. And away from Josh Jobe, I thought the entire secondary, like Kobe Bryant had the pick and a couple of nice plays. So obviously the secondary made some plays. But in the fourth quarter in particular, I guess we could say the second half, Devin Witherspoon looked like a guy that hadn't played for a couple weeks. I'm wondering where his health is at. He missed a couple of tackles he's normally not going to miss that led to first downs. And if you would have got the guy down, then probably get a punt, the extended drives. And Kyler Murray was going after him the last couple of drives. Harrison's 16-yard touchdown that got him within 7. That was good coverage for the most part, but Marvin Harrison reached over and got him. And then Witherspoon was not in a position on the touchdown to DeMarcado that tied the game. He was not able to get over there on that dump off and make the play. So he was at the center of Arizona's success. But Arizona got into those positions in large part because of penalties. And Riq Woolen had 3 critical ones today. He had a face mask in the first quarter that led to Arizona getting the red zone. They got a field goal out of that drive. It was after Kobe Bryant's pick and fumble. So that face mask penalty got him into the red zone. And then in the second half, he had a defensive pass interference penalty in the third quarter that didn't lead to any points, fortunately. Then he had another one in the fourth quarter that led to Arizona's first touchdown to Marvin Harrison that cut the lead to 7 going against Xavier Weaver. This has been tough to watch, but Riq Woolen's penalties all turning into points, or 2 of them turning into points. They have got to figure out how to get cleaner, more consistent football out of him. Or at some point, with the way Josh Jobe is playing and you're trusting Devin Witherspoon is going to be ready to go in week 5 and he just needs a little more time to get 100%. And, there's rust when you don't play for a couple weeks. I think the Seahawks have confidence Devin Witherspoon's going to be able to do what he needs to do. But Riq Woolen has just made way too many mistakes in these first 4 games. There's been too many penalties. There's been too many plays that he didn't finish off. So these questions just persist for Seattle's coaching staff. How do you get better, consistent play out of him? What can you do to help with the penalties? He's got to try to make plays on the football. A couple of those are probably not even going to get called if he's got his head turned around, but he's not turning around to play the football. That's automatically going to draw flags from officials. And he was getting handsy with the receivers at the top end of the routes too. Those are always going to draw penalties. So Seattle needs much better play from both those guys. Witherspoon, I don't know if he was 100% healthy going into this game. He did some good things, blitzing. He had a couple nice tackles, but missed some plays he normally wouldn't. You can give him a little more grace because he's been banged up. He's missed the last 2 games. Riq Woolen, he's just too talented to be making some of the mistakes that he's making week in, week out. They've got to find a way to get his confidence up and get some more consistency out of him, because I think for this defense to play to their true potential, you need Rick Woolen playing at a high level. And to this point, very up and down, hasn't had an interception yet. And teams are picking on him, knowing that he is getting himself in position where he's going to draw penalties. So I'm expecting that to continue. He's got to adjust to that. The coaching staff has to adjust to that. If he's not able to, then do you start mixing and matching your lineups a little bit? And maybe Shaquille Griffin gets back on the roster. Or maybe you give Nehemiah Pritchett an opportunity. Or maybe Darion Kendrick plays on the outside with how well he played in the slot for a couple of those games. He's been a boundary guy most of his career. Seattle's going to have to start weighing some of those options if Woolen is going to have those kind of issues with penalties and giving up big plays where he isn't able to finish them. He's got to figure things out and pick up his play week in, week out. They need more consistency from a guy that has the talent that he should be a star in this league. Right now, he is not playing to the level that he is capable of. The Seahawks got to figure that out here during this little extra window that they have before their next game. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We will have another show coming your way, a Friday Musings. That'll be coming tomorrow. Locked On Seahawks, Friday Musings. Make sure that you listen in and enjoy the rest of your Friday morning. Go Hawks.